Hi everyone, I'm Michelle Yu and welcome to Law and Crime Network. I'll be with you the next few hours with live analysis in a very busy day of trial coverage. We begin in Las Vegas for the arraignment of Duane Keefe D. Davis. The former gang leader is charged in the 1996 death of rapper Tupac Shakur. The young rapper was just 25 years old when he was shot in a drive-by shooting on the Las Vegas Strip. Davis has previously described himself as a witness to the murder, writing in his 2019 memoir that he was in the car when gunfire erupted. He also implicated his nephew Orlando Anderson as one of the two people in the back seat where the shots were fired. Today, Davis is the last surviving suspect to the crime, and in just a short time, he will make his second court appearance to formally enter a plea ahead of his jury trial. And Anjanette Levy is out in Nevada for today's hearing. Let's hear from her now with the latest.
I'm Anjanette Levy in Las Vegas. The man accused of ordering the murder of rapper Tupac Shakur in 1996 will be back in court later this morning. Duane Keefe D. Davis faces a murder charge with a gang enhancement. He's expected to enter a plea to that charge.
The record reflects that Mr. Davis is present in custody.
Davis was in court 2 weeks ago for his arraignment, but he didn't have a lawyer with him, so the arraignment was continued. The 60-year-old former Southside Compton Crips gang leader is being held without bail on that murder charge. Prosecutors say Davis gave a Glock handgun to his nephew, Orlando Anderson, to shoot Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight on September 7th, 1996. Retired Las Vegas Metro Police Lieutenant Chris Carroll found Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight at Harmon and Las Vegas Boulevard.
This layout has changed over the years, but it still has the same basic shape.
Carroll said the scene was chaotic, and he asked Tupac Shakur who shot him.
Well, he looked at me and he got his breath together and, kind of got himself and he went, "F you." And he said it like that with anger in his voice, like he didn't want to deal with me, basically.
With witnesses not telling what they saw, an arrest couldn't be made. But then in 2018, Keefe D started talking about the murder.
So how did you know Tupac and Suge was in the black BMW?
He was hanging out the window.
Davis also wrote a book in 2019 entitled Compton Street Legend, describing that night in detail and the moment that shots were fired at Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight as they sat in a black BMW.
Hey, Keith, Metro Police, come over here.
All of those factors led to Davis's arrest on a murder charge nearly 3 weeks ago. Duane Davis's arraignment is scheduled for 9 a.m. Pacific Time, noon Eastern Time. Stay with Law and Crime for continuing coverage of this hearing. I'm Anjanette Levy in Las Vegas.
Thank you so much, Anjanette, and we will hear from Anjanette after the hearing. But for now, I want to introduce to you Corey Pegues, who will be with us on our Duane Davis coverage today. Corey is a retired NYPD deputy inspector and author of Once a Cop. Thank you so much for joining me, Corey. And as we wait for this hearing to begin, what are your initial thoughts and what plea is he going to take here?
Well, my initial thoughts are there's something wrong with this guy, Keefe D. He's an attention grabber, attention seeker, because no one in their right mind after all of this time of getting away with the murder, again, he's allegedly the murderer, had something to do with it, passing the firearm to his nephew. I don't know why he would come out and go on this tour. He pretty much went on a tour to tell that he was one of the people that was involved in the vehicle. And so being involved in the vehicle, he's an accessory to the crime.
But here's the deal, Corey. 27 years ago, this is when this happened, when Tupac Shakur was murdered. It's been a very long time. Why now, and why do you think it took the police so long to make this arrest?
Well, as me and you was talking off camera, I like to always tell people that's not intimately involved in police work that it's not 40 minutes and 20-minute commercials. It's not a TV show. This is a very tedious process. And this was a national murder. This is one of the biggest rap murders in the history of, rap murders. So you want to get it right. You don't want to lock the wrong person up. You want to make sure that you get it right. Now, Granted, I come from the big bad NYPD, 40-something thousand police officers. We have a whole division of detectives and a whole nine. Some of these other smaller police department municipalities don't have, what we have. So it takes them a little longer, but almost 30 years is a long time. But I'm just glad that they were able to piece the pieces of the puzzle together and actually get a suspect now.
Now, he was being held without bail since his last court appearance when his attorney did not show up. What do you expect to happen this time around?
I expect for him to have an attorney, and I'm expecting for him to plead not guilty, just like everybody else, and we'll see. But what I'm most excited about is to see what's on the list of that search warrant at his wife's house. And we probably won't see that today, but I want to see what's on that search warrant, because in my experience, criminals like to keep trophies, and I'm excited to see what he has in there. It could be something that he wrote. Is a piece of ballistics out of the vehicle, because I don't think they ever recovered the gun. Was it the gun? There's something on that search warrant that I think that was vital, and it was a major piece for them locking him up.
Now, this case is still making headlines after almost 3 decades because there were so many conspiracy theories about this murder, and then also with Biggie and when he was murdered and how they were intertwined. People love this case. Now, when you talk about the trophy that all the evidence that they're going to find out, why do you think he wants people to know about this so bad? In one of his documentaries, he said himself, I have cancer. This was back in 2018. He says, I have cancer. I'm the only person who's living that knows what really happened. It's now time for me to tell my truth. But do we really want to come out and tell our truth that, he was involved in this murder? What is in it for him now?
I don't think that he had an epiphany and said, hey, listen, before I go to the pearly gates, I want to confess my sins. I think he's an attention seeker, a grabber, and he wants to stay in the headlines, because you got to think about it. He's got away for 26 years, 25 years and some months. He got away with this, and he's been out on YouTube, on podcasts, freely talking about it, and no one has knocked his door down to put the bracelets on him behind his back. So he actually thought that he could get away with this, but just like every other criminal, one day we'll come and find you, and his day is here.
Now, looking ahead, if this does go to trial, who do you expect to testify? I mean, could players like P. Diddy, could Suge Knight come out? I mean, could they come and talk about this? Suge Knight has actually said in the documentary that he does not want to testify, but could it happen?
Not with Suge Knight. Suge Knight is a real gangster, and the definition of gangsters, it probably has Suge Knight's picture on it. He's not telling. He's no Sammy the Bull. He's not talking to the police at all, and that's just the gang culture, and that's why I don't understand why this guy Keefe D is out there. But he was in the gang, the Southside Crips, but he was more of a major drug dealer, like his nephew Orlando that did the shooting. He was really gang banging. So let's just wait and see what happens. I'm very excited about this. But you got to understand, Jam Master Jay, Tupac, Biggie, these are 3 of the biggest names in rap, and none of their cases have been solved. I mean, Jam Master Jay, I think we got some closure over there, but the whole rap world wants justice for Tupac's family, for Biggie's family, and for Jam Master Jay. These are major players in the rap game.
Well, you mentioned Keefe D as an attention hogger. All eyes are going to be on him today because he will be arraigned in Las Vegas, Nevada around 12 p.m. Eastern time. And of course, we're going to have that coverage for you. We're going to take a look at the body cam footage of his arrest in just a moment, but we do have to take a quick break here on Law and Crime. Much more to do here in a moment. Welcome back to Law and Crime. We're focused on Duane Keefe D. Davis this morning ahead of his arraignment that should be starting up very shortly. This is the former gang leader charged in 1996 death of famed rapper Tupac Shakur. The artist was shot in a drive-by shooting on the Las Vegas Strip, and Davis has since admitted to being in the car where the shots were fired. Davis is the last living suspect linked to the death. And while we wait to go live into that Vegas courtroom, I want to take a look at some interviews Davis gave on YouTube as it relates to his involvement. Take a look.
Why was y'all in Vegas in the first place?
Come to the fights. We was going to the fights before the rappers. Before Suge even had a record company. We've been going to the fights since like 88, 89. Yeah. Come down there for the big fights.
So did y'all have tickets to that fight?
Yeah.
Y'all did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got them from my little scapper partner. Scapper. I used to go to the games, the Raider games at the Coliseum, and he used to be in front of the thing. I found out he was a scapper, so we exchanged numbers. So any concert, sporting event, I would call him ahead of time and get the tickets.
What day did y'all show up to Vegas?
I came on that Thursday.
That Thursday?
Yeah.
And the fight was on a Saturday. Y'all showed up on a Thursday. And if I'm not mistaken, the day before the shooting, you spoke to Suge Knight and Tupac, right? A day prior?
I didn't talk. Tupac don't know me.
But Suge Knight, you had a conversation with Suge Knight.
We was waiting on our cars at the valet at the MGM, and they pulled up, and they Rolls Royces. And
tell me about that. Because that was a Friday. That was the day before the
yeah, and he got out and came and shook my hand. What up, big dog?
Suge Knight.
Yeah. That's why I didn't understand why would they jump on my nephew the next day. I was stupid.
Okay, so he came up to you, he shook his hand. And
shook my hand. What up, big dog? What you doing? You know? And all the because all the bras was around him, and so they was like, who the is this dude? He must be powerful. You know what I'm saying? Everybody must have looked at it like that. Like, damn, he just came out of the crowd just to shake this dude in. Yeah.
So just take me through that Saturday, everything leading up to the incident.
We had got tickets from the scapper dude, and he had us placed all over. And we was gonna meet at the cafe after the fight. That was all our plans. So everybody had was coming to the cafe, and I seen some of our partners from 11-8 East Coast Crips. They like, hey, they just jumped on your nephew. Like, who? Said some death row. Like, you bullshitting. They're like, yeah. And we ran into the lane inside the lobby.
So y'all ran into your nephew, Orlando. What did he say to you?
He just said they jumped on him and stuff like that. And I asked him, was he all right? He said his shoulder was kind of up. I guess from getting kicked in the shoulder or something, he said his shoulder was up.
How mad was he?
I was more mad than him. Yeah. Why would you know what's up? Know who people that is.
So what exactly did he tell you? Did he tell you like, yo, Tupac jumped on me, or?
He just said that death row jumped on him.
And the only injury he had was his shoulder.
His shoulder was kind of
So pretty revealing details there by Keefe D, as former NYPD Commander Corey Pegues is back with me here in studio. And Corey, as we listen to this interview, was that not enough for the police to act on something?
Well, I believe that Keefe D was implicated very early on in the investigation. And watching this interview, just the portion that we have seen, he's not really making any incriminating statements. He's basically saying that he was in Vegas, that's his nephew got jumped, but he's not saying anything about the shooting. So they had already spoken with Keefe D a few times, the police, I'm quite sure. They have interviewed him a few times, but he never didn't give the linchpin where they could just say, okay, we gotta lock him up now.
Now, keep in mind, 14 years ago, he did talk to the cops, and they made a deal. He was going to tell them some details about the incident, but he was not going to be prosecuted. But now he has been, and what is the difference between then and now? What was it that he said that could possibly make him now be arraigned?
Well, we don't know what the deal was. Was it a statute of limitations on the deal, and he didn't know, and now he's out? Because it doesn't make sense. If he had this deal where he couldn't get prosecuted, why would he be out talking? So that just makes me believe when he had a deal for a certain case. I don't know what the deal was for. It was probably for one particular case. And after that case was taken down, the deal was done. And now he's back in the game.
Well, I'm sure we're going to learn more from that courtroom later on today. I want to go back to that interview because later on in that interview we just saw, he touched on the way he was feeling when Tupac was in the hospital. Take a listen.
Just take me through that week where y'all in LA and Tupac is in the hospital. Everything is on the news.
Yeah,
what was your mindset?
That MTV man, he made me sick. What's his name? Mike Lipkin?
Yeah.
Yeah, that that Moon Man. Oh, I hated that. You know.
But how was you feeling, man? Like Tupac being in there for a whole week. You know, people saying he gonna survive. You know.
How was I feeling?
Yeah, like how was you feeling? Like, because everything is on the news. It's rumors going around that y'all did it. Tupac is in the hospital fighting for his life. Just take me through that entire week where, you know, all this is going on.
I'm a crip from the streets, bro.
Yeah, but this is a high-file situation, yo. Like, everything is on the news, MTV.
And I lost my mom at 15. So it ain't nothing I really, you know, I didn't feel nothing. Just another day, I had to keep it moving. Plus, I'm responsible for 300-400 kilos. That's just part of the business.
Well, as you watch that, Corey, I mean, it doesn't seem like he feels any sympathy, really. He was seen chuckling, laughing. This is a man who self-describes himself as a hardened gangster. So when you look at his demeanor and how he is, are you surprised at where we are now?
No, not necessarily, but when you're in that life, that's what it is. So I'm not surprised at what he's saying, but if you go back to the previous interview, the clip we was looking at early when he was talking about the incident inside of the hotel, some of this stuff, you know, just his body, I'm not an expert, but his body language, his movement, some of it looked like he was fabricating to me, just for me a little bit. So I don't know like how intimately he was involved in this, but we do know that he was in the vehicle because he placed himself inside of the vehicle. And the difference between him being a hardened criminal and now, I don't know, but you asked me earlier who's gonna be subpoenaed. I can't wait to see what his wife says. That's gonna be the key, his wife.
Well, as a former NYPD commander, how difficult is it to execute a search warrant, to now go into his house to look for all the little details involved in this?
Well, it's not that difficult if you have the information. So once you have the information and you go to a judge to get the judge to so order, once the judge listens to what you have, the judge is going to say yay or nay. Like, you got to go back and get some more, or wow. Here we go, so ordered. I'm signing it, take the door.
Could we see a bombshell? Could we see him come out and say there was someone else that was also involved in this?
With his demeanor, you don't know what this guy, I think he's a loose cannon. So we don't know what he's gonna say. We don't know what he said on the interviews before. So I'll be excited to see the list the prosecution has for people that's coming out to speak.
Why do you think this case has really captivated not only the hip-hop world, but any true crime junkie, the media? We love this case.
We love this case because Tupac was a trailblazer. I mean, this guy went from talking about F the police to Brenda had a baby. You know, so he went to all different gamuts. You know, his pendulum swung from being this lover to being this whole gangster, and then you have all in between. So he actually, if you took the gangster away from him, you look at old videos of him, he looks like an all-American kid that was a middle-class guy before he started, you know, got with death row. He was like an all-American guy.
Did you think that at all he had in his mind, knowing that Nevada does not have the statute of limitations for a murder case? I mean, basically, it could be 50 years. He could still be charged. Did you think that that went through his mind at all before spouting to everyone about all the details?
No, I firmly believe, and you can see he's not so educated just watching him talk and stuff. But he's a gangster, and these gangsters, again, in my experience, these gangsters really think that they can get away with murder. And that's why we have prisons full of them all day. Some of them are probably innocent, but most of them that commit crimes, they get...
What goes into it? What can
to confirm in 2 weeks, then I'm going to appoint counsel in 2 weeks because we got to get this case moving. Do you understand? All right, Mr. Goodman, you understand?
I do, Your Honor.
All right, we'll continue this case for 2 weeks. That date is?
November 2nd at 9 a.m.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Menino?
Thank you, Judge. I'm here on George Bone, page 3.
Just 1 second, Mr. Menino. Let me let it calm down for a little bit.
All right, there seems to be a little bit of a technical difficulty on our end. Hopefully we're going to fix that. Corey, as you just heard a very small snippet of that, they were discussing possibility of when this could all start. When do you expect this trial to start?
Well, the judge was emphatic and said in 2 weeks. Again, there's another lawyer issue. You see, she was like, can you confirm? He said, I can't confirm at this point, but I need another 2 weeks. And the judge is like, no, in 2 weeks, either I'm gonna have to assign somebody, we gotta get this case going. So we're still having some issues right now legally with the lawyer.
What factors go into that?
Well, the lawyer has to be compensated if there's a paid lawyer. If she's a legal lawyer, like if she's assigning a lawyer, it's coming, from the legal aid society, then they're getting paid, they're on salary, they will represent him. Or he's getting a personal lawyer, they have to get paid. And I think that might be a problem right there, because this is the second arraignment. The first lawyer didn't show up. Now we have another lawyer that said, I can't really confirm at this point. So we'll see what happens. I think it's going to end up being an assigned lawyer.
Well, when that actually does happen, what do you think the defense's case here is going to be? What is their biggest thing they're going to pinpoint here?
Well, the defense case is going to be pretty obvious, saying that he had nothing to do with the shooting. He was in the vehicle. And they might even go, because he's been talking so much, they might just be saying things like, this guy's, loose lips. Maybe we need to do a psychological evaluation. Like all of these things they're going to be trying to defend him with. But he placed himself in a car, so you can't get out of that. So the only defense they're going to have is he didn't have anything to do with the murder. He was just driving. He never passed a gun. I believe that's exactly what they're going to say.
Well, if we move forward and, this case goes on, do you think he should testify?
With the way he's talking, I don't think any lawyer in the world will put him on the stand.
He might want to because of his ego, because listen, this is a guy that wants to be heard.
Yeah, I mean, it's the client. The client is the one that makes the decision, but I'm pretty sure the lawyers will be telling him, you should refrain from this. Unless you're really ready to go to prison for a very long time, stay off the stand.
Well, that would be smart. I'm sure people are going to advise upon that, but he may argue that he wants to talk. He did talk during the body cam footage as well when he was arrested. We're going to take a quick look at that and then talk about it on the other side.
Yep.
Rest here. I mean, I'm sure you've dealt with this a lot in your career. Not everyone looks as calm as he was.
Oh, he's cool, calm, and collective. You can see, but he's a gangster. It's the same rigmarole. He's been through this numerous times. I don't know his rap sheet, but I'm quite sure he has a lengthy rap sheet. So he knows how to deal with the police. You can see he's laughing, he's talking, he's asking for a sip of water. His hands is behind his back. There's no resistance whatsoever. And he's just ready, like, all right, I've been through this before. Take me down to the county jail. Let's get this done.
Well, he said, I'm only going out for a walk. And as he was walking, the cops approached him. It almost seemed like he wasn't taken by surprise. It almost seems like he wakes up every morning feeling, oh, when are they going to come for me?
Exactly. Yeah, that was the very early footage, which we didn't show. Yeah, it was like he's ready. Just like, hey, I'm here. I'm Keefe D. Let's go. I've been waiting for you.
There was no resist at all.
No resistance whatsoever. But again, him resisting doesn't even make sense. You probably got 25 cops there. You see they're heavily armored. Where's he going? He didn't have a firearm on him, so he was just going for a morning walk. It didn't even make sense to resist. But because of his demeanor, it was easier for the cops. We like when people comply. Put your hands behind your back. We give you water. I'll let you drink the whole bottle. That's nice. All we want to do is get home safe. We don't want any officers getting hurt. So this actually is an arrest that the police love because we don't have to engage in fighting or resisting.
Well, he's had many interactions with police over the past few years, past decade. But I think one that stands out is that there was one time where a cop had questioned him and he said, yeah, I'm involved on what happened in one of the biggest rap murder cases ever, September 7th, 1996. In fact, he was boasting that, hey, I'm involved in that case. So it almost seems to me he wants to get caught.
Yes, or again, Michelle, he really thought that he could get away with this because it's so long. You gotta understand, it's like your kids, right? You put cookies in the jar. You tell them don't take a cookie out the jar. They keep taking the cookie. There's no punishment. You're not taking their phone, their television away. They're gonna keep taking the cookies. So this guy was getting away for so long. He's like, hey, I could boast, I could talk about it. Nobody's coming at me. I've already said numerous times, I was in a vehicle. There was discussion that I passed the gun off to Orlando. That right there, him incriminating himself passing a gun, I don't know why he wasn't locked up at that point.
Well, can you describe a little bit about that relationship? Orlando Anderson, who was his nephew, he was murdered 2 years later after Tupac Shakur was murdered. Obviously, once again, if you guys are just joining us, Keefe D is the only living suspect. Oh, before I finish that thought, there is a presser now going on right now, so I want to take us to that.
Get hired to review the grand jury transcripts or to prepare a motion if one is needed. But obviously the things that jump out is that there's no gun, there's no car, and there's no witnesses from 27 years ago.
Mr. Goodman, when things get finalized, do you plan to ask the court for bail?
Of course, I think Mr. Davis should be released on OR. He's not a flight risk. He's not a danger to the community. He's lived in Henderson for 11 years. And he's not going anywhere.
Ross, how do you defend someone who, time after time, publicly has said that they were there, they know what happened, and that they were handing this murder weapon to the president? How do you defend that?
Well, you have to look at the facts and circumstances surrounding why he gave those statements at the time that he gave those statements. But again, I haven't reviewed those statements in detail. I haven't reviewed the other evidence, but I believe there's a motive and incentive on why somebody would make a statement like that, even though it may not be true.
Is G.D. Fall still representing him? Is E.D. Fall still representing Mr. Davis?
I'm not sure what his relationship is right now, or whether or not he's going to associate into the case.
Could you speak at all about the topper agreement that he made with LAPD detectives 15 years ago?
That's one thing I haven't reviewed in detail, so I can't make a comment regarding that.
When you talk about how large this case is, I mean, how much work does this mean for you going forward?
It's a big case. I mean, it's 27 years in the making, so I understand there's about 600 pages of grand jury transcripts, and you can imagine the amount of evidence that and potentially impeachment evidence that comes along with all these witnesses that are going to come out of the woodworks.
There have been suggestions from Keefe himself that he has cancer, he has potentially terminal cancer, that his health is in very bad shape. Can I ask you, what do you know of that? How is he doing? You spoke of him today. What's his mood like?
Well, he's happy I was there today, and he's happy that shortly I can confirm his counsel if it gets finalized and that we can bring a motion for bail so he can be released. And with respect to his medical condition, I heard the same things. I haven't reviewed any medical records yet, so I can't comment on that, but apparently he did have colon cancer shortly before he gave those statements.
How's his well-being? You spoke to how's his spirits?
The spirits are fine right now. He thinks that there are defenses, and he wants to fight the case.
Why did you say he confessed?
Well, I don't know if that is a confession. That's a legal conclusion. And like I said before, I'm not even in on the case yet. I haven't reviewed anything, but just based on the reports, I believe when I see these statements, which are extrajudicial statements, that there are reasons on why people say things. But as everybody here knows, that you have to corroborate those statements. And if you don't have a car, if you don't have a gun, you don't have witnesses to corroborate what Mr. Davis said under those circumstances, I believe there's an obvious defense to that on why he made those statements and the motive for making those statements. That's all I can answer at this point.
Thank you. That's all I can hold too.
I was like, too much.
Thank you.
It's heavy up your eye.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Y'all bring a stand next time. Photo
All right, as you just heard, that was Keefe D's lawyer, Ross Goodman, answering some questions to the media. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to head back to Las Vegas to see the latest. Anjanette Levy is also on standby to talk to us. We'll be right back. coming back to Law and Crime. I'm Michelle Yu. The arraignment for Duane Keefe D. Davis was just delayed again for the 1996 death of rapper Tupac Shakur. Now, Law and Crime's Anjanette Levy was inside that courthouse for the arraignment. We will get her on very soon. But for now, I want to welcome another legal guest for today, Matthew Mangino. Matthew, welcome. What is your take on this whole case with Keefe D?
Well, it's interesting, and when you contrast it with what we just saw yesterday with Joran Vandersloot, here's a guy who admitted to a murder and can't be charged with homicide because of the statute of limitations in Aruba. And here we have, what, a 27-year-old homicide that's now being prosecuted because new evidence has been obtained. So it's interesting to contrast these two cases and how they're so very different.
Matt, what did you take away from Keefe D's lawyer there, Ross Goodman, on what he had to say?
Well, it's interesting to see, again, that this arraignment has been delayed, and I think it's in part because of what we've heard from his attorney. And I think that, certainly this isn't the place where you're going to enter a guilty plea or you're going to do anything other than plead not guilty, find out what the charges are against you, and then, the case moves forward, it's docketed, it's scheduled. So, it's not surprising that counsel, jockeys sort of for position and for the public at this stage of a proceeding.
Now, the other guest for this hour is former NYPD Commander Corey Pegues, who's in studio with me. Corey, what did you make of the lawyer there and what he had to say?
Well, just like Matt said, and I defer to Matt as a attorney, it really wasn't much he was saying. It was all the same stuff. He was deferring and hoping. What I got out of it was they haven't signed a retainer at this point, so there's not much he can say. And he did say, like, once that paperwork is done, then I can put in release on bail. So he can't really do much at this point because he's not officially his attorney.
Well, what I also got away from that, Matt, and as we were watching that, he said he hasn't reviewed all the materials about this case yet, but he does believe there's, a whole defense here, and that's that they don't have a weapon, they don't have any of that, and also he's the only living suspect. How big of that is it in play here?
Well, Michelle, anytime you're dealing with a homicide that occurred 27 years ago, and now you're trying to prosecute that case, it's always going to be difficult. And there's always going to be opportunity for the defense to make something out of, missing witnesses, unavailable witnesses, witnesses who are now deceased or potential witnesses, the murder weapon, all those things, play a role in a case like this. And the fact that it's taken 27 years to make an arrest and to proceed with the prosecution all works in favor of the defense.
All right. And of course, our Anjanette Levy is in Las Vegas. She is covering this for us on Law and Crime. We hope to hear from her very soon. We do need to take another quick break here. Much more to do here on a very busy day of trial coverage. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Law and Crime. I'm Michelle Yu. If you're just joining us, the arraignment for Duane Keefe D. Davis was delayed once again for the 1996 death of rapper Tupac Shakur. Law and Crime's Anjanette Levy was inside that courthouse for the hearing, and she is here with us now to bring us the latest. Thank you so much, Anjanette. What were the vibes inside that courtroom?
Well, Michelle, it was kind of like Groundhog Day. We were all here 2 weeks ago for this same procedure, the same arraignment hearing. It was continued yet again. This time, though, Keefe D had a lawyer present. That's Duane Davis. His street name is Keefe D, of course. And his name is Ross Goodman. He does high-profile cases here in Las Vegas. His mother is the mayor of Las Vegas. And he asked for a 2-week delay because he said he's still finalizing the representation agreement with Duane Davis. And so there are some things that are still going to need to be worked out. So this arraignment will be continued until November 2nd. Same vibe as last time, really. A little less media there. I did not see Keefe D's family here this time, but I did meet up with a friend of his who came to support him. He wasn't in the courtroom, but he was outside the courtroom. So you could see Keefe D. I mean, he's very serious. He knows this is serious. It doesn't get any more serious than this in the legal system. He is facing a murder charge with a gang enhancement. So it's a case that is a very high-profile case here in Las Vegas, and the Las Vegas Police Department and the DA have said that this is an important case. And joining me to discuss it is somebody who has handled his fair share of high-profile cases. He is Gabe Grasso. He represented O.J. Simpson, you may recall, back in 2007, 2008, in that robbery case where O.J. Simpson went into a hotel and robbed some people with the assistance of others of some memorabilia. So, Gabe, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Your thoughts on what happened today?
Well, this is just sort of the, I guess, ugly underbelly of how these cases get started with not much going on. Apparently, Mr. Keefe D, that's what he goes by.
Keefe D, yes.
Keefe D.
Duane Davis, yes.
Yeah, Duane Davis. I'd call him Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Davis is attempting to hire Ross Goodman. He's apparently made an agreement with him to a retainer agreement, but there's still some things to work out, and that's where we're at with this. You know, it's an interesting case, and I spoke with Ross. I've known Ross for 15, 20 years, and he's a capable attorney. I've actually tried cases as co-counsel with him, and he can handle this. You know, he'll be able to handle this case. It's just a question of the client getting the lawyer on board and seeing where we're at when the dust settles and we get here in 2 weeks, and hopefully Ross can say, you know, I'm going to confirm as counsel, because that's what he's got to do. He's got to confirm as counsel, and then they're going to set they might set a trial date, they might set a status date, but normally they would set a far out trial date with some dates in between.
You said you spoke with Ross. We just saw you over there speaking with him. You've tried cases with him. Tell us a little bit about his style. He seems very sure of himself. He came down here and talked with us. He says 600 pages of grand jury transcripts. He hasn't read them, but he already sees defenses to this case.
One of the most difficult things for somebody to do in a case like this is hire the right lawyer, because I've been trying cases now for going on 35 years all over the country. Most of my practice now is federal. But I tell people that, you know, it's very difficult to really know who to hire. You can't go by the billboards. You can't go by, not that criminal defense lawyers use billboards, but you can't really go by that. And so at least I can tell you that, you know, there are a handful of lawyers in any jurisdiction that are the top criminal defense lawyers. And Ross Goodman is a lawyer who regularly practices criminal defense. You want at least that. Hopefully he'll be able to, and he's got a team around him. He's got a going office. He's here every day. So that's what you need. So I think, you know, like I said, I don't have any doubts that Ross can handle this case. This is a case that it's going to take some nuance, that's for sure.
Let's talk about that. I mean, nuance for sure, because we have somebody who engaged in a proffer agreement back in 2008, 2009. He tells this story about what happened that night. He basically, that statement can't be used against him, but then he goes out starting in 2018 and he starts giving interviews to YouTube channels, to BET, the Death Row Chronicles. He writes a book, Compton Street Legend. He talks about throwing a Glock. I mean, I read the book. He throws a Glock into the back seat. It doesn't appear that this is a work of fiction or that he was telling it as a work of fiction. This was supposed to be a non-fiction account of what happened. So what are the nuances here? I mean, how do you kind of work around this?
Well, obviously, I'm just here commenting.
Sure.
I don't even think, no one on the defense side, I think at this point, I think probably Ross is the most informed defense attorney in town on it because he's probably had some bits and pieces of information that other people don't know. But from what I know about the case, for example, there have been some articles about this proffer agreement with the feds in California back in the day where he made statements. Well, I think, for example, they made a big deal about that. I think that the state can move forward. The state in Nevada can move forward with this case without using any of the statements he made in the proffer agreement. I mean, that's how I'd approach it if I were the prosecutor. I wouldn't want that issue coming up. But remember, proffer agreements have a lot of, I do that on a regular basis. That's one of the things I do most in my practice is proffer agreements with the feds. And proffer agreements have other parts of them that people don't remember. They just think that whatever you say in the proffer agreement can't be used against you. In reality, if you then in a trial down the road take the stand and say something different than you said in the proffer agreement, they can use the proffer agreement against you. There's sort of contingencies about that, as well as they can use what you say. They can make what's called derivative use, which means the feds can take what you said or any investigative body and they can investigate further based on what you say and come up with more evidence. So I don't think that's going to be a big issue in this case, the proffer agreement. I think they have enough to move forward. I mean, the grand jury found probable cause to move forward on this charge. The issue I see is all this stuff has been out there for a long time, okay? All this information. He wasn't charged in 2018. He wasn't charged in 2019. He was charged in 2023.
Right.
So what's up with that? See, that would be a question I would have as the defense counsel, and I would say, okay, what caused this? What was the trigger? That's what I would have my investigators and trying to figure out what was the reason for this. Maybe there's something that I can use as a defense in how this case got where it is right now. That's one of the issues. And the other thing that it's funny. There's a quote from Albert Einstein that sort of reminds me of what's going on in this case, because they say, well, we have hundreds and hundreds of pages of grand jury testimony. We have many witnesses in the grand jury, and these are all like former detectives in California who investigated, and former Nevada detectives, and all these people who are talking. But there's no gun, there's no car, there's no DNA, there's no real evidence other than testimonial evidence, not only from Mr. Davis, but from other people. And so when you have people talking, that's where defense attorneys can make most of their progress. When you have just testimonial evidence, right? That's where you can challenge things. So I just remember this quote from, when they say, well, look at all the evidence we have now. Back when Albert Einstein came out with the theory of relativity, the general relativity theory, there was a magazine article which was entitled 100 Physicists Against the Theory of Relativity, basically challenging Einstein's, because it was a new theory and people were saying, no, there's no way this is for real. And Einstein was asked about it and he said, why 100? If I am wrong, you only need one. And so that's sort of the attitude I would take. Why do you need all this? If this guy really is what you say he is, if he is the guy, why do you need, why is all these little grains of sand building up to finally getting right past the probable cause determination? That would be sort of part of my theme in the case. Because, for example, when you're a person in his world, in Mr. Davis's world, one of the things I know from I've represented in federal court the rolling 60s Crips. Okay, I represented that group. And one thing I learned about representing the Rolling 60s Crips and representing the Hells Angels and the Laughlin Shootout, and I've been involved in those cases and representing individuals who were charged in those conspiracies, is that one of the lifeblood of some of those organizations really is bragging, pontificating, making things up about yourself, getting street cred out of basically what might be BS.
Yeah.
And so those are all things that can be argued, like you can actually investigate that and formulate a defense as to how possibly this could just be all BS.
Now, Judge Jones obviously seems a little irritated. She wants to get the ball rolling on this case. Do you see her, because Ross Goodman said, I think he should be released on an OR bond. He's lived here for years. He's not done anything, bad. Do you see the judge releasing him on bail, maybe with a GPS monitor or something like that?
That's one of, if I were defense counsel, I wouldn't even be worried about the case yet. I would be right now concentrating, if I were, any defense counsel worth his salt, and I'm pretty sure Ross is thinking the same way. The main issue here is getting him out, because he was walking around for 27 years, if this is true, and it's not as if he's been arrested 15 times since then. He's been a relatively law-abiding citizen. I'm not sure if he has any.
He did years for drug dealing, but yeah.
I'm just saying, like in the last few years, he's 60 years old. He's been, he was taking a walk with his wife when he got arrested. So that would be my main concern, is trying to get him out on bail, because this is a weird case. This isn't one of these cases where the alleged murder just happened and the guy's on the run and they finally caught him and now he's not getting out, because the standard in not only Las Vegas and Clark County but in other jurisdictions is, if it's a first-degree murder accusation, people usually aren't getting out on bail.
Right.
But this is a different kind of case.
Well, Gabe Grasso, thank you so much. We appreciate your time and your insight. We appreciate you coming down and talking with us today, and we look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Thanks so much. All right, Michelle, so there you have it. The arraignment will be continued again until November 2nd. You heard Gabe Grasso saying he thinks there are ways to defend this case, and really right now the top priority should be getting a bond for Duane Davis, if the judge is so inclined to do that. So we'll have to wait and see. He does have a prior criminal record. He did about 15 years for some drug dealing. He was a very serious drug dealer in the Compton area of California, had a lot of money from what we understand from dealing drugs, and made a lot of money. Whether or not he still has that money, who knows, but we do know that he has a past criminal record. He's somebody who's been through this before. He knows the score. He knows how this goes. So we will wait and see what happens, and we'll have it covered for you.
All right, Anjanette Levy, thank you so much. Great work as always. We're going to check in with you later on in the broadcast. But for now, we're going to take a quick break. Much more trial coverage to do here on Law and Crime.
confirm as the attorney of record on this case?
I'm not going to confirm today, Your Honor, but I'm going to ask the court for 2 weeks to continue the arraignment and for confirmation of counsel.
Okay. State what's your position?
We'll submit it to the court, Judge.
All right, I'm going to give you 2 weeks, but in 2 weeks we got to get this case moving. So if Mr. Goodman isn't going to be able to confirm in 2 weeks, then I'm going to appoint counsel in 2 weeks because we got to get this case moving. Do you understand? All right, Mr. Goodman, you understand?
I do, Your Honor.
All right, we'll continue this case for 2 weeks. That date is
November 2nd at 9 a.m.
Thank you. Have a good day.
So there you have it. That was the very quick hearing for Keefe D, whose real name is Duane Davis. Welcome back to Law and Crime, everyone. Our focus right now is what's happening out in Las Vegas for that arraignment for Duane Keefe Davis. It was delayed once again, and this, of course, for the 1996 death of rapper Tupac Shakur. Law and Crime's Anjanette Levy is there and has more for us now. Anjanette, the arraignment delayed once again, as I just mentioned. What was Keefe D's demeanor like in court today?
Well, Michelle, he walked in, he looked very serious. I mean, this is a guy who's been in Vegas, in the Vegas area, I should say, for many, many years. He's granted interviews. We're used to seeing him in, nice clothes, but this was a different Keefe D than we've seen on YouTube and in the Death Row Chronicles on BET. He's wearing a jail jumpsuit. He's got his wrists shackled at his waist. He looked very serious, very concerned. This is not a laughing matter. It's no joke. So it was very serious. He spoke with his lawyer very briefly. They're still finalizing a retainer agreement. I spoke with Ross Goodman briefly after he gave a press conference down here a short time ago. And he said, there's just some things we need to work out before I can confirm that I am indeed representing him. I should mention that Edie Fall, the attorney that Keefe D mentioned last time we were all in court for this, he is a California attorney, a defense attorney in California, and he is going to, or at least planning to, he told me today, be admitted pro hoc vice here in Las Vegas, in Nevada, so he can assist with the representation of Duane Davis. He has worked with Duane Davis in the past, and he actually represented Orlando Anderson in the 1990s, 1996, 97, when he was being asked whether or not he was involved in the shooting death of Tupac Shakur. Orlando Anderson, of course, is Duane Davis's nephew, the man that Duane Davis says he tossed the Glock in the backseat of the car, and then Orlando Anderson shot Tupac Shakur. They had that confrontation at the MGM Grand earlier that night. So obviously everything I'm saying is according to Duane Davis's book, Compton Street Legend. This is what he wrote. Innocent until proven guilty, though, of murder here in the state of Nevada.
And Jeanette, what can you tell us a little bit about Ross Goodman, the lawyer for Keefe Davis? I understand, I heard you say before that his mother is the mayor of Las Vegas. What else can you tell us about him?
Well, I just know that he has handled some high-profile cases out here in Las Vegas. He represented a Cincinnati Bengal at one point in time who got in some trouble. He's done some other high-profile cases. So he is somebody who is used to the spotlight and is an aggressive defense attorney. He's somebody who's very well known here in the courthouse. You heard Gabe Grasso earlier saying he's tried cases with him and he's a capable lawyer. This is somebody who specializes in criminal defense. He is not, some civil lawyer who dabbles in criminal defense. This is what he does. And Ross Goodman said he thinks that he is already seeing defenses to this case. So it will be interesting to see if he indeed confirms that he is, in fact, representing Duane Davis on November 2nd. If they finalize that retainer agreement, it will be very interesting to see how he conducts himself throughout this case, the posture he takes. Obviously, during the press conference, he's representing his client. He is saying there are numerous reasons that Keefe D may have made these statements and said these things in interviews and in his book, and of course in that proffer, the proffer that took place back in 2008, 2009.
And Jeanette, tell us a little bit more about the next steps. I mean, when do you predict that they will finally see a jury to this?
Well, we don't even know if it'll go to trial, Michelle, really, in all actuality. On November 2nd, Keefe D will enter, we anticipate, he will enter a not guilty plea to that murder charge that carries a gang enhancement. And after that, it's possible that the judge sets a trial date sometime out, unless Duane Davis asserts his right to a speedy trial. a trial date could be set, or they could set some status conference dates, things of that nature. And then, Ross Goodman has to get the discovery in this case. There are hundreds of pages of grand jury transcripts that are available. I've read them all. He will be reading them all. He'll also get whatever evidence the state has against Duane Davis and have to review that and figure out what is the best path forward. If he asserts his right to a speedy trial, then he'll get a speedy trial, and it'll take place sometime early next year. If he delays it, if he waives his right to a speedy trial, it could be still sometime later next year. It just really depends.
Well, Anjanette, if this does go to trial, since the shooting was so long ago, is it possible that the jury will be less biased and know less about the case than they might have been years ago?
That's very possible. This has been covered quite heavily in the news, but if you ever sit through jury selection, there are people who simply do not watch the news. There are people who don't pay attention to these types of things. And so I don't think that it would be that difficult to seat a jury in this case. This is a pretty big county, Clark County, Nevada. This is Las Vegas. There are a lot of people who live here. So there's a pretty large jury pool from which you could select a jury.
And finally, Anjanette, was there anyone in that courtroom that was related to Keefe D that was there that stood out that you want to point out?
No, Michelle, we did not see anybody who appeared to be family or friends in the courtroom. I met a man outside of the courtroom afterwards who didn't make his way into the courtroom during the hearing, but he was a friend of Duane Davis, and he showed up, and he didn't really want to say anything at this point, but he did show up to support his friend.
Well, Anjanette, again, if this does go to trial, do you expect it to be a zoo like some of the other high-profile cases that you have covered in your career? Because at the end of the day, this is, if not the biggest hip-hop murder case that ever took place.
It could be, Michelle. It could be, or it could be one of those things where we've been allowed to live stream the proceedings thus far. A lot of times when you live stream a proceeding, you have an influx of media and other people at the very beginning of the case, and then it kind of dies down throughout the case. Because people can cover it and watch it from other locations, they don't have to be physically present at the courthouse. So it could be, but it is interesting, both last time we were here and this time, we've only seen maybe 2 sets of fans between the last court appearance and this court appearance. So we aren't seeing throngs of fans showing up. So I think that you're not going to see a lot of that. And we're in Las Vegas. You're not going to get maybe hardcore Tupac fans from LA traveling here and things like that. They can watch it on YouTube, our YouTube channel. They can watch it other ways.
Well, I know you've been speaking to some very interesting people inside that courthouse, as we heard before, the former attorney for O.J. Simpson. Who can we expect to be your guest the next hour?
Well, if she is still walking around here, I am going to speak with a Tupac fan from Washington State who traveled here, and she and her husband are really the only set of fans we've seen here at the hearing today. But she seems like a pretty avid fan, and she said she's also a TikTok influencer. So we are going to track her down and bring her on in the next hour.
Finally, we look forward to that, of course, Anjanette, but do you think, you mentioned that there were not a lot of people, not a lot of fans. Do you feel that at some point this will pick up and it'll really gain more traction? Because at the end of the day, this is a case that people are still talking about, though.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there is a lot of interest in the case, and maybe it will gain more traction, but traveling to Las Vegas, unless you live here, traveling to Las Vegas is a lot to come to a proceeding where somebody is simply supposed to enter a plea of not guilty. So maybe in the future, as we approach a trial date, it will pick up steam. But I think for now, people are just kind of hanging back and watching. There were people I anticipated would be here today who have connections to this case who ended up not coming. So maybe they just decided to stay at home and watch from there.
Well, as you were just talking, I want to get back talking a little bit more about the demeanor of Keefe Davis, because as you were talking, they just showed a clip of him looking very calm, and you mentioned he looked very serious. Now, if you look at the other interviews that he has done in the past, even in his body cam footage arrest, he seemed really cool about it. What was different today? I mean, do you think he really felt the vibes? Like, I'm in this courtroom now, this is it.
I mean, I think it's different because he's been sitting in jail now for almost 3 weeks, almost 3 weeks. It will be 3 weeks tomorrow that he was taken into custody as he was taking a walk outside of his home in Henderson, Nevada, which is not too far from here. And I think that, he is calm because he's been through this before. He knows the drill. But at the same time, I felt like there was a seriousness to his facial expression. He's charged with murder. I mean, he had done serious time for drug dealing in the past. He had done 15 years. He knows how to do time. And he's somebody in a gang. He was a gang leader who's made it to living 60 years old. Everybody else who was supposedly in that car that night is dead.
Yeah.
So,
all right, Anjanette, I'm just going to interrupt you real quick. We have to go to a break now, but we're going to go back to you at the top of the hour. You're watching Law & Crime. Much more from Vegas after this.
Bit, and you're never supposed to ask a woman her age, but I'm going to just ask you. I mean, were you a child when Tupac Shakur was killed? I mean,
he passed away before I was even born.
Okay.
I was born in 1999.
Okay, got it. But you like his music. You told me you have some signs outside, things of that nature. What is it about his music and about him that you appreciate so much?
I like his songs a lot, and especially his song about his mom, because like my mom passed away when I was 4, so that tremendously makes a big impact on my life. And I just was like so happy to hear like that the person that me and my dad loves him. Like, he's like, because I had like on Facebook like cover photo, I made him my cover photo, Tupac. But besides the point, like I just started following a few things about Tupac and saw that the dude Keefe D got arrested for allegedly being around or whatever.
But you traveled here from Seattle, so obviously this meant something to you. You're a TikTok influencer. What do you plan on doing with this on TikTok?
I'm making a point that people need to show up and make a point to be here for the people that aren't able to speak for themselves.
Well, Brianna, we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you have a safe trip back to Seattle. All right, take care. All right, Michelle, we're going to send it back to you. That was Brianna Caldwell, and we'll have more coverage later on YouTube. We'll be talking with some other people, so I'll send it back to you for now.
All right, Anjanette, but quickly before you go, any final thoughts on what happens next? Anything happening in that courtroom worth noting?
I'm sorry, you said with a motive? Is that what you said?
No, I said, is there anything worth noting that's happening in that
worth
courtroom
noting. I'm
today?
sorry. Yeah, sorry, it was a little hard to hear you there. No, not really. I mean, it was so quick. You saw how quick it was. Yet again, another delay in this case. What I thought was interesting, though, was Judge Jones was very serious and said, look, if you don't have a lawyer next time we're here, November 2nd, I'm appointing one for you. We're getting this case moving. And we've been told by people here at the courthouse, she is a no-nonsense judge. She wants things to run on time, and that's it. So she is going to make sure that this case moves along.
All right. Well, Anjanette, thank you so much for that update. We're going to hear more from you later on in the broadcast. And as Anjanette mentioned, the arraignment delayed once again, but we're going to show you what happened earlier today in that Las Vegas courtroom. Here it is.
Will you tell us how you got involved in this case?
So multiple people contacted my office from California and here. And I've been meeting with them for several weeks, and we're close to finalizing a deal for me to participate in that case.
Counselor, how do you defend a case like this? How do you defend a case like this?
There's obvious defenses already, but in all fairness, I haven't even confirmed as counsel. I haven't reviewed the grand jury transcripts, so I have no actual evidence.
We need to ask you if your client intends to plead not guilty in the case.
Mr. Davis informed me that, of course, he intends to plead not guilty.
And did you see, having reviewed the transcripts of the grand jury, did you see weaknesses in the case that the district attorney presented to the grand jury?
Well, as I just said, I'm not yet hired to review the grand jury transcripts or to prepare a motion if one is needed, but obviously the things that jump out is that there's no gun, there's no car, and there's no witnesses from 27 years ago.
Mr. Goodwin, when things get finalized, do you plan to ask the court for bail?
Of course, I think Mr. Davis should be released on OR. He's not a flight risk. He's not a danger to the community. He's lived in Henderson for 11 years. And he's not going anywhere.
Ross, how do you defend someone who, time after time, publicly has said that they were there, they know what happened, and that they were handing this murder weapon to the president? How do you defend that?
Well, you have to look at the facts and circumstances surrounding why he gave those statements at the time that he gave those statements. But again, I haven't reviewed those statements in detail. I haven't reviewed the other evidence, but I believe there's a motive an incentive on why somebody would make a statement like that, even though it may not be true.
Is G.T. Fall still representing him? Is E.D. Fall still representing Mr. Davis?
I'm not sure what his relationship is right now, or whether or not he's going to associate into the case.
Could you speak at all about the topper agreement that he made with LAPD detectives 15 years ago?
That's one thing I haven't reviewed in detail, so I can't make a comment regarding that.
When you talk about how large this case is, I mean, how much work does this mean for you going forward?
It's a big case. I mean, it's 27 years in the making, so I understand there's about 600 pages of grand jury transcripts, and you can imagine the amount of evidence and potentially impeachment evidence that comes along with all these witnesses that are going to come out of the woodwork.
And as you just saw, that was Ross Goodman, who is going to be Keefe D's lawyer in weeks to come. The arraignment delayed once again. So as I bring in former NYPD Commander Corey Pegues, this is obviously very frustrating for the judge, but the judge said in that courtroom, you have 2 weeks to really basically get it together and then go from there, because people really know about this case already. They want to get going, right, Corey?
Oh, most definitely. And from what we understand, this judge is a no-nonsense judge. It's like, okay, this is the second time that you come to court without a lawyer. If you don't have one in 2 weeks, I'm assigning you one, and we're going to get this case going.
Let's talk a little bit about Ross Goodman himself. So from my understanding, he's a very good criminal defense attorney. But what's interesting is that he comes from a mayoral background. His mother is currently the mayor of Las Vegas, and I believe he was a mayor as well. How does that dynamic come into all of this?
Well, let me tell you about Ross Goodman. For me, first impressions is he's smart, he's articulate, he's cool, calm. He has a working knowledge of the case so far, with just, him not even being intimately involved in the case. He sounds and looks very professional and someone that's going to be on their game. And as far as his mother being the mayor and him being a mayor, I don't think that's really going to play a major part. It's going to be about him having enough knowledge about the case to come with a defense. And you already see he's coming out there. No ballistics, no gun, no vehicle.
No motive.
So, no motive. And it's almost like he's saying, well, yeah, there's a lot of statements by Keefe D, but like loose lips sink ship. He's saying all this stuff. Can we corroborate this stuff? Obviously, the prosecution corroborated something at that grand jury because they went and locked him up.
All right. Well, all eyes on this case, but delayed once again. We're, of course, going to follow this as all of these updates come. We're going to take a quick break here on Law and Crime, but it's been a very busy day of trial coverage across the country. We're going to check in on some other cases as well. Stay with us. We'll be right back.